Uh-oh, he's got the port fast warning back up. That can't possibly be good. Well, actually, it is good. I just want to give you a quick reminder of this because BPDU Guard, the feature we're looking at in this video, is actually a feature that Cisco came up with to help us stop the one person, and there's always one, who's going to see a warning like this and say, you know what, I think I'll connect a switch to this port fast enable port and see what happens, or a hub, or a concentrator, or even an etc. Well, what BPDU Guard is going to do, it takes root guard one step further. Where root guard took action when a superior BPDU came in on a port, BPDU Guard is going to take action when any BPDU comes in. And what happens is that port will actually go into what we call error disabled state. And we're going to use the topology from the root guard section to illustrate and run a lab here. Now we know that if BPDU Guard was out of the picture, if root guard was out of the picture, that switch 4 would take over as the root as soon as it was introduced to this network. Now what we're going to do is enable BPDU Guard on that same port on switch 3 that leads to switch 4. We know that's fast Ethernet 0/4. This time it should block BPDUs period, superior, inferior, otherwise, coming in from switch 4 and shut the port down. So we're going to see all this live. Let's go ahead and bring up the board. We'll bring up the telnet window. And I had the port fast message all waiting for us. Now, let's go to 04. Command begins with spanning. It's a little unusual because where we had to do spanning guard, to do root guard in the last video, here we have BPDU Guard right in front of us. It even gives us a description, great description on the second line of iOS help. Don't accept BPDUs on this interface. Okay, so, and incomplete command. You would think that would be all you need. This is an oddball command though. You have to put disable or enable on the interface, one or the other. You can't just say spanning BPDU Guard. So I'm going to do an enable, and then I'm going to open the interface and we'll see what happens. Timestamps are a little long here, but I'll show you the full message. And all kinds of things happen there. A couple that we would expect to see in normal situations and some that we wouldn't. And what's going on here, we saw the interface comes up, and then look at this, almost immediately. Here's our message, span tree block BPDU Guard even tells us that. Received BPDU on fast 04 and with BPDU Guard enabled, and it's disabling the port. Now, right after that, the port goes into error disabled state. Because what it does, it says BPDU Guard error. That makes it sound like there's some kind of error with the way the feature is working. There isn't. It's the error in we're getting a BPDU in on this interface in the first place. So we are putting it into error disabled state, and then finally the interface is shown as down. Now what's odd here, not really odd, let me do a show interface fast 04. Because with root guard where the interface was not actually down, it's actually down this time. And it even says error disabled right there. And when you see error disabled, that means that we're going to have to manually reset that port by default once we clear up the issue. So once we go find out what device is sending a BPDU in and get it out of that port, the port is still going to be down. It's still going to be error disabled. So if you go immediately and you put a host into that port, you'll say, well, what's going on here? And the thing is, you have to manually shut and then reopen that port in order for that to take effect. Now, really, that's all there is to this particular feature. It's all there is to BPDU Guard. That's what it does. That's how you enable it. Now, you are not required to run BPDU Guard on a port fast enabled port, but it is a fantastic idea. And it's such a good idea that Cisco has given us an option to enable BPDU Guard on all of your port fast enabled ports at one time. It doesn't put it on every single port on the switch unless they're all running port fast. But let me show you this option. It's spanning, then port fast, because if you look for it elsewhere, you're not going to find it. Then BPDU Guard, and then default. And notice right there, it does mention on all port fast ports. It's a great feature to know about. BPDU Guard period. But especially this particular option of putting it on all your port fast enabled ports by default. Now we have another feature that'll just take a couple of minutes to cover. I want to do it in the next video though, because we have BPDU Guard, which we saw here, but we also have something kind of interesting here. BPDU Filter. So what's the difference between guarding and filtering? Well, we've seen guarding here, and we'll talk about filtering on the very next video. See you there.